Hi, I'm Nick Bonner for treestuff.com, and today we're going to talk about a variety of climbing systems, methods, and techniques, and what the difference is between DRT or MRS and SRT or SRS, and how to transition between those two climbing systems, what to learn first, and what I think the best method of climbing is. You'll have to stick around for that though. So this video is part of a series, kind of an impromptu or loose series, but it's a companion video to our soup to nuts climbing video, where we cover all of the different type of equipment that you need to climb trees. We'll show a lot of that today. There's going to be a little overlap between this video and that video, but if you haven't checked it out, check it out. It covers all of the stuff you'll need, PPE, the different types of ropes and pulleys and things like that. And while I'm going to show a lot of climbing systems today, I may not elaborate on all the different options, more so as I'm talking about the type of climbing and the impact that the system has had on it. So first thing here is we have our DRT or DDRT or MRS. That's double rope technique or doubled rope or moving rope system. So there's a lot of acronyms. Kale can pop those up on the screen everywhere and show you. But essentially this is one piece of rope and it's doubled over an anchor point up in the tree. I've load tested it, checked it out, and everything seems to be okay. So the most basic type of climbing that I will teach to people is going to be the Blake Sitch. So you can tie in with a variety of different types of anchor knots. You could use a figure 8 here, or even a bowline and use the tail, but in this instance I'm just going to use 2 half hitches. I've demonstrated this very basic technique before and I feel pretty comfortable with it. So I'll set this distance here at an appropriate amount. Usually I check that by about how far I can reach out, and then we will tie our Blake Sitch here. And then we'll make sure that we can tie our safety knot in the end here, expertly spaced, of course. And this is a Blake Sitch. So there's videos on how to tie this knot. If we don't have a video on this, I'll definitely make one, but you can check that out. Here you can see the Blake Sitch is able to support me, so it serves that stop function, and I'm able to go up and then also come down. So we've got the 3 basics of climbing, right? Up, stop, down. And you can see that with the right amount of effort and some spinning, I'm able to go up pretty, I don't know if easy is the right word, but effectively, and I'm able to get up the rope. So that's the basics of ascending with a Blake Sitch. There are other ways. See here, I'm able to take a foot lock and stand up, but I still need, sorry about the spinning here, I still need to be able to advance my hitch. It's certainly not easy, right? So if I added a foot ascender to this technique, you can see that I'm able to stand, but if I let my foot go back, if I let my foot go back up, I haven't gained anything. So I need to stand and then adjust. Feed the ascender, stand, and then adjust or advance that hitch. This works, and it's an invaluable technique that I think every climber should know. You may find yourself in a situation where you need to use the end of your climbing line or as an additional positioning aid, or you might find yourself in a situation where you need to do a self-rescue. And knowing these techniques, not needing a bunch of flashy hardware, I think is really important. So here, by using a basic prusik, you can attach this cord to your main line that's not moving, and then being careful not to put the pulley on the bridge, which is what this is called, not to be confused with your rope bridge. You can clip the pulley underneath your Blake Sitch and attach it to this prusik, which then creates an adjustable tending point. So now I'm able to sit underneath, and as I'm pulling, you can watch this pulley is going to pull this up. And I can size this appropriately and fine tune it until it works really well. Maybe I needed an extra couple wraps here because you see this prusik isn't holding super duper well, but that's a quick way to take this setup here to the next level. When you decide that you're ready for the next set of DRT systems, I definitely recommend getting a rope with an I-splice on it. And the reason, I'll show you right now. So same rope, but now we're using the end with an I-splice. And we're gonna bring in a 3-hold pulley and another closed prusik cord. So I'm going to choose a knot here. We have a whole video on knots if you want to look at the different types of prusiks that you can tie, but I'm just going to pick a good trusty knot that I hope will work on the first attempt here. We'll add our pulley. And our carabiner. We'll bring a second carabiner in here and go through the I-splice. Make sure that we're not all fouled up here. We'll clip in here. So this is one of the more well-known climbing systems, is your hitch climber system. This can be done with a variety of different pulleys, hitch cords with and without a prusik. And now, just put it this way so it's a little easier to see. You see that what we have here is that by pulling up on the bottom, I'm able to tend that slack. I can still hip thrust, but I still need to stop and pull the slack out beneath me. The big difference here is that when you're in the canopy or you're limb walking, you're able to handle the slack really efficiently, and it doesn't require a two-handed motion to advance that knot like you saw with the Blake's hitch. Even with just one hand, I can go like this. But as I walk away from my anchor point and I'm coming back in, you see I can really easily tend that slack. There's very little sit back, and this system is really tunable. It works really well. So that covers the basic advanced DRT system using a hitch. But there's also a ton of really great mechanical devices out there. The number one mechanical DRT device is going to be the Petzl Zigzag. So here we have the newest Petzl Zigzag. This is a really great device, and this uses a chain system to simulate and replicate what the prusik does. So you'll see I have to feed the rope through here. This is not midline attachable. Most climbers, I say, would keep their rope, keep their zigzag on the rope. This process can be, depending on how old your rope is or how you have the end finished, can be a little bit of a bear, but once it's on, it's just going to fly through. And once it's set up, it has all of the benefits of a hitch, every one of them. But it also does certain things that the hitch doesn't do well. It doesn't require any customization or configuration. It's just going to work for every climber right out of the box. Unlike some other mechanicals on the market, this one is really good because it's super intuitive. There aren't brake blocks or weird levers that you have to pull. It uses the same motion that you use with the hitch climber pulley, and you can see that I'm already showing you that same action, right? Instead of pulling down on the hitch, you pull down on this chain, and it is really, really smooth. I gotta say, there's not a mechanical on the market, SRS, DRS, or anything, that is as smooth as the Zigzag. It's just a great all-around system. As we move away from the Zigzag and away from DRT or MRS, we start to add in an extra point of friction if we want to climb SRT or SRS. I'm gonna get these acronyms confused, I'm sure of it, before the end of this. So when you are moving from a hitch-based system, so you have your hitch climber pulley and your hitch, you can add in extra friction above that using a rope wrench. And after I'm done demonstrating what the Zigzag has done, I'll show a rope wrench system with the Fusion tether. This rope wrench is on a RopeLogic fixed tether, which is very similar, and it works with, say, the hitch climber pulley and a Prusik, but we'll show a rope wrench system here in just a second. Petzl with the chicane, it really did a great job. It's got a 2-button open here, and you see inside, much like a rope wrench, it's going to apply a bend in the rope when you pull down on it, and that's going to give the climbing system beneath it, in this case a Zigzag, the extra friction that it requires to work. Now, the Zigzag is only configurable with this one specific carabiner, so you do have to make sure you have the right Petzl H-frame. But once you have this set up, it's going to work like the friction hitch and rope wrench that we're going to demonstrate here shortly, but it has that smoothness that you would associate with a Zigzag, and it has that intuitive use that you don't really need to teach anyone how to do anything different. A Rope Runner Pro, for example, or an Akimbo, which we'll show here in a second, it's a different motion. It's not like just using a hitch, so it's definitely a little different. This is a really nice setup. If I had to say that there's a downside to the Zigzag chicane, it's that it's not midline attachable, and it doesn't go to zero the same way. With a Rope Runner, taking a big swing or something like that, you can disengage it pretty much to zero and then feather it back on. If you're doing a limb walk and you're running back out, it can be really difficult to break both of these and to get it where there's no friction. And sometimes that little bit of friction as you're trying to fight can be, I think, problematic. Overall, I think the Zigzag chicane is a really premium SRS system despite some downsides, but I think it's a great example of how you can transition from DRT to SRT or MRS to SRS with an extension of the same hardware. And we see that same thing, like I just mentioned, with the hitch climber pulley and the Prusik that go on there. So let me put this rope away, and we're going to switch over to this other fixed line now. All right, so here we have a fixed single line, and we're going to show what a rope wrench system looks like. So we talked about how you could take your hitch climber pulley, your Prusik, and your carabiners that you already had, and you could add a rope wrench to it. That works great. Tens of thousands of people are doing that. Now you're seeing these new stiff tethers come out, and they are rigid tethers, I guess you would say, and they are really there's a reason that people like them, and I think it's because it's a really superior experience. You see, there's nothing to drop with the carabiner. We actually have a video, just a whole series of videos just on this product. I made a couple videos, the Tree Thinking team made a couple videos, so it's a really good option to have. So I'll come on here, I'll tie another nice reliable hitch, and then we'll use this to talk a little bit about some of the general benefits of SRS climbing or SRT and the rope wrench system, and then we'll move on to the mechanical SRS or SRT systems that are not based on like the premise of a hitch or like the Zigzag. Jeez, I'm talking too much and not looking at what I'm doing. I forgot to put the rope in there, so just goes to show you, everybody makes mistakes. All right, so there we go. We're all set up now. Saw I caught that in my little check there. Goes to show you why you should always check your gear. So here we are, we're set up, and I think you can kind of envision how there could have been that hitch climber pulley, the rope doubled over. This is very similar. You can see it stops, it goes down, and it presumably goes up. The difference, the biggest difference between SRT and DRT is that you don't have that downward strand to pull on. You don't have that built-in innate mechanical advantage, but it actually results, that mechanical advantage, while it makes it easier to pull in DRT, you have to put twice the amount of effort in to go up the distance because you have to pull twice as far. With SRS or SRT, there's a much heavier reliance on having a foot ascender. I would say that a foot ascender is an SRT necessity. We have a whole video on foot ascenders you can check out too. But here, when I stand, you see that I'm going up, right? The full distance of my step. Now, I'm demonstrating this nice and slow. I don't have a knee ascender, a chest harness, a lanyard over my shoulder, or anything like that to help tend this. If I had a chest harness here, something holding this to this, when I stood up, you would see it going up like this automatically. Then you think about incorporating another foot in with a Haas or a knee ascender from Petzl or something like that, and suddenly you're able to climb a lot easier. Even in this short demo, you know, when I was hip thrusting, I was getting out of breath, I mean, in 4 or 5 strokes. Here, when I'm using my foot, very easy, much easier. So I think that's one of the biggest differences of SRT versus DRT. The other really noticeable difference is that when you bend this rope, say there's a tree branch here and you bend it around here, and then say it, you know, it goes around another branch, you know, and it's over here, right? The amount of friction at this system is the same no matter what, right? It doesn't matter how many things you've wrapped this rope around, because this is moving independently on the rope. When you think about DRT in the same scenario, if you bend this rope this way, any movement that you're doing now has 2 additional points of friction. The rope has to bend across my arm. You take that through a second bend, and now you might not even be able to move, right? 3, 4 bends for sure, you're not able to feed the slack and pull it from your anchor point to where you're at. So differences, benefits to SRT is that direct input, right? 1 foot of push goes 1 foot. In this, you have to lift it 2 feet, right? Because it has to go up, and then you have to take up all that distance. So more direct action, and then a benefit of more controlled and predictable friction at any point throughout the climb, right? Add in the fact that with SRS, you're able to rely more on your legs and less on your upper body. And the reasons really start to mount up why you see lots of climbers switching to or using SRT, SRS predominantly in their systems. That being said, I highly recommend, and would say as a requirement almost, that all climbers know how to climb MRS DRT. I mean, you have to, but you should know how to use the most basic techniques that I demonstrated today, which are going to be tying that Blake's hitch with no extra hardware, you know, just using the 2 half hitches or a figure 8 or a bow line down there at the bottom, but being able to climb, position yourself, secure yourself without using all this extra hardware, I think is going to be a real benefit. Last thing I want to touch on today are these premium mechanical devices. We're going to talk about 2, the best 2, the only 2 I think that are really worth considering. This is the Notch Rope Runner Pro. We have a whole series of videos on this product. This is, I think, probably the best mechanical out there. I'm fairly partial to it. I'm going to go ahead and put it on here, and you can see some of the differences in the way that these two devices work right off the bat. So here's the Rope Runner Pro, and here's the Akimbo. There's no denying it, the Akimbo is just a gorgeous and simple piece of equipment. It's very elegant. Neil, who is one of our engineers behind the camera, is literally salivating as he sees this thing. He loves it. I think as much as everyone who sees it. Once you get it on the rope, which it is super easy to do so, it's gonna look like this. So these mechanical devices are similar to Prusik, right? They provide a clamping or a bending force to the rope that slows you down and is able to be modulated. The Rope Runner uses a bend up here, which is really similar to a rope wrench, which bends the rope the same way, right? And then it uses two compressive spots. So there's a compression here and a compression here. The Akimbo, again, you see that similar bend that's put in the rope by the Chicane, the Rope Runner Pro. They're all building off of what Kevin introduced with the rope wrench originally. The difference here is that the Akimbo has traded size, weight, and complexity of putting it on for 2 points of friction. They make up for only having two by having a really high level of adjustability. All these bollards inside here can be turned to provide different friction settings dependent on your rope or weight. That's definitely a feature. It can be a lot to fine tune sometimes, and I think you see reports by people that maybe it's a little tough to fine tune. On the flip side, you see a lot of complaints about the Rope Runner being a little bulkier, a little heavier, a little harder and slower to get on the rope. You know, some people say it's pseudo midline attachable because it's kind of a pain in the butt. You know, I think that both devices have their pros and cons, and overall they're both great, and they're both made by awesome inventors who have just really contributed a lot. Both of these devices work the same way. I won't give too exhaustive of a demonstration. There are videos about both of these products, obviously. Both of them feature a tending point here to attach to a chest harness and over the shoulder or something like that. And both of them are going to let you down by pulling down on the upper bird of either device. So I think ultimately you're going to be really happy with either of these two devices if you decide to go the route of a full mechanical. They both work really well and were designed by field inventors, guys that are out there using this gear every day and making it what it is. So really high quality stuff. I hope that that this video was helpful, that we were able to cover some of the basics. If you didn't know how all this gear worked before, I think at least now you have a picture of how it works. You know, if you want to start incorporating knee ascenders and chest harnesses, definitely check that stuff out. I highly recommend a chest harness and a knee ascender. You definitely have to have a foot ascender, but we have videos on all that stuff, and you can find all that at Tree Stuff and on our YouTube. And all these items, everything we sell is 5% off every day with the coupon code Arborist. So thanks so much for watching, and I really hope that this was helpful. Cheers.